So let's talk about why you're not a confident hockey player or you're not as confident as you want to be. And let's talk about how to actually fix it. So first of all, let's define what it means to actually be confident. So really, confidence is the percentage likelihood that what you say will actually happen. So it's really a spectrum of confidence. It's not if you are confident, it's how confident are you? Because you can be a 0 out of 10 or you can be a 10 out of 10. And you're still going to be on that range as long as you get up to like a past 0. Now, most people, when they think of confidence, what they're really saying is that they have high confidence. And if they have low confidence or low belief, then that's when they're saying, okay, I don't have confidence or my confidence sucks. And one of the most important things to realize is that confidence is not just a single area concept. And what I mean is that you can be confident in one part of your game or one part of life or one part of hockey in general, but not confident in another. For example, you can be very confident that you're going to play super well in a hockey game, but you might not be super confident that your team is going to win because the team is far superior than your team. And this might seem a little weird, but if you think about it, fundamentally, it's not that crazy because confident is simply looking at what is the actual likelihood in terms of a percentage that this is going to happen. And if you're 100% confident, then you're very confident it's going to happen. But if you're 10% confident, then you're not very confident. You have low belief in that. So a lot of times when I talk to a hockey player, the biggest challenge they're facing is that they actually don't know how to identify what their actual issue is with the mental game. So I'll break it down into 3 core types of players. So player 1 is somebody who they're lacking the actual abilities and past evidence to be confident. And so they'll come to me and say, my confidence sucks. And in reality, it's not that your confidence is actually weak in terms of some kind of mental issue. It's really that you just don't actually have the abilities to create the confidence. And so player 1, fundamentally what you need to do if you identify with this is take a step back and actually create a development plan. So that's the first type of person I'll usually help is say, look, let's get on the phone. Let's actually break down and go into depth about what is lacking. What are the weak points in your game? What are the strongest points in your game? How can we maximize the types of situations that you get in where you have the most success? How can we minimize your weakest areas and really just try to find a way to create a personal game structure for you? Now, this is a bit more complex, but fundamentally, it's just looking at what are the situations you get in a lot and what are the situations you don't get in a lot and starting to maximize to get in more situations where either you usually get in these situations a lot and being better there, or look at what you're already good at and try to get in that situation more often. If you can maximize that and then start to look ahead at how your game is going to translate to the next level, it's going to make a big difference. And I say this because all the best players I work with, any guys who are in like top tier junior A, like the BCHL, the NAHL, guys who are in different, like in NCAA, guys who are in professional, these are the nuances that allow them to be able to make the next steps is actually looking at their film. And that's why we do hockey IQ and game film analysis when I work with players, because you actually have to look at the real game itself and then look at the skill set, look at what's transferring, what's working, what's not. So that's the nuance with player 1 is that you think it's a confidence issue, but it's really an ability thing. And then you got to go and identify where the bottleneck is in your game and figure out what your strengths are, leverage those strengths, try to actually bring up the weakest points, but not focus all of your energy on it. Because if you do, you end up just wasting a lot of time. So you can go back and listen to a lot of podcasts where I dig into that. But player 1, it's not really a mental thing. It's go and do the work in terms of the other areas. Hockey IQ, which is also technically mental, you would want to go and probably identify if there's an issue in terms of your decision making, your anticipation, your pattern recognition. You want to look at that stuff. So I hope that's clear. Now, player 2, on the other hand, they actually have the ability and you have the evidence that you can play well. So you've had huge games, you've had standout games, big point nights, you've performed at an elite level multiple times. If you're in this situation, if you identify as player 2, the biggest issue you're going to run into is that there's something about your consistency. There's something about not being able to show up every day the same way and perform the same way that's causing you to just obviously lose your mind and get super frustrated because you know you have the ability. So if you feel like you're player 2, this means that you probably actually do have a mental block when it comes to your confidence. So if you're not performing the way you want, you don't feel confident in yourself, and you very clearly do think it's a mental thing, but you do have the ability, you've shown it before, you've performed at the current level you're at, then this is a block that we got to figure out. And so the place to look if you're a player too is look specifically at what part of your game you're not confident in. You want to ask yourself, what is it about my game that I'm not good at, or that I believe I'm not good at? And a lot of times what you're going to find is that it's the belief you have about a specific area of your game, and you have to break that. Now, the problem is that it's going to be a blind spot for you. It's not something you're just going to look at on your own and you're going to solve instantaneously. So that's why I have like individual and group programs where we talk about this stuff. Go work with somebody who can actually help you find these, somebody that you want to listen to, that you do respect, because they can help you look at your game and they can help you break down and find where that false belief is. You break that belief, you change the way you perceive your game and your ability, and then suddenly the confidence comes, and then you can show up consistently because you don't have a faulty mental pattern or mental program. Your mental software stops holding the hardware back. So really, if you're a player too, you're the exact type of person where I'm going to set up a plan for you. We're going to work together. We're going to break all this stuff down. And once you do get through this, you break those beliefs, then you go into learning probably more focused techniques, learning how to visualize more effectively, learning how to actually meditate and dial your mind in, being able to center your focus and pay attention to something. When you do go through those nuances and then you bring it into your decision making and your hockey IQ, you learn how to make better decisions. We look at your film, we break that down. This is where you're going to find your game suddenly just takes like a big leap, because your ability was always there. You just had to tap into it by getting the mental out of the way. And now the third bucket is somebody who doesn't completely fit into either bucket because they kind of have their foot in both sides. On one hand, they do have a lot of ability that's missing, and they really do need to work on their ability and get better. But then on the other side of the equation, they also have some very faulty beliefs in their game, and they have more ability than they have the confidence to execute. And so when that ability is there, you need to go and figure out kind of a balanced approach. This is where I would work with a player and help you figure out kind of both sides of the equation. Make sure your development is good, making sure that your actual mental game and all the components of your mental software are good. If you build up both sides at the same time, if you're a player 3, this is where you're going to see the most success. Because if you try to just work on your mental, then you're going to get kind of delusionally confident in yourself, and you're not going to perform as well and wonder why. And it's because you haven't developed yourself and your ability to do what you need to do, but then also have to at the same time keep pushing the belief system forward. So you can't like neglect the mental, but you also can't just work on the mental. It has to be blending these together and be more holistic. Now, any conversation I've had hundreds of conversations with players from minor hockey all the way up into college and pro. It's so important to realize that you probably will fit and identify somewhat with all three buckets. And odds are you're not 100% sure which bucket you fit into. So that's why I have conversations. That's why I encourage you, go and reach out to some kind of mental performance coach or a development coach who understands the full picture. Have those conversations with people because they can help you to figure out what is the lacking piece. If you think of yourself like a race car, for example, like let's just say an F1 like race car, if there's one component of the car that's lacking, it's going to slow everything else down and cause issues. If the driver is weaker than the actual car, so the driver can't handle the capacity of the car, well, then the driver is going to be holding you back. If it's the brakes that are holding you back, well, then you're not going to be able to use your speed as effectively because you can't slow down as fast as you need to. Each component of the car and the driver and the team all have to work together, and you keep having to find whatever the weakest points are, get those raised up, make sure they stop bottlenecking you, and then you have to find whatever strong points you have and really double down and push into those. The biggest mistake is just not knowing what to work on, not knowing what to prioritize. Prioritization is what's going to separate you from other people because you can work on things, but if you do it in the wrong order, a lot of times it kind of can be counterproductive. Like if you learn how to shoot super well, but you don't learn how to skate, well, then the skating is going to hold back your shooting. If you learn how to skate first and you have very good skating, very good stick handling, very good shooting, and you progressively build forward, that's just a general, then you should be able to piece those together into your game. And this can be the progressions that allow you to find that you were actually as good as you thought you could be, but your abilities were holding you back. But again, this is where that kind of continuum of ability versus belief has to, you can't have one that's lower than the other. They both have to move together, and they kind of have to bump each other up. My theory is that you want to keep the mental a bit above and your belief in yourself above where your abilities are and keep pushing it. And then you also want to have a macro longer term vision of knowing you can progress further. Because if you create that kind of delusional long term vision, it gives you something like inspiring to shoot at. And I do not want anybody to think that you just go into every game being like delusional. You don't go into every tryout thinking, well, there's no chance I could possibly be bad. But you need to prepare yourself. And the way you want to think of it is you need to prepare yourself like you're like not good enough, essentially. You have to keep looking and asking yourself what could be better. Just like Crosby, McDavid, they always have something that can improve. But then at the same time you're looking at, well, what can I improve? When you do get to the performance, you say, well, I know I have the capacity to even outperform what I know. There's this possibility, there's this gap that I don't know how far it could go. So you leave the possibility open, and you can kind of go into that range of the Conor McGregor or the like super confident, cocky type of person. You can try going into that range, but a lot of times it's just going to lead you to overset expectations, put too much pressure on yourself. And then you wonder, man, I'm trying to be confident. I'm trying to like bolster this like big, tough, cocky ego. And then you wonder why you're not actually performing and why you're struggling mentally. And it's because you're building this fake confidence for yourself. You don't actually have deep, true, like actual like identity deep or even further than that confidence. Now, I know that's one of those stupid things that you'll hear and you'll think, oh, that doesn't make any sense. But fundamentally, it just comes down to looking at the nuances and then understanding, okay, what is it that I actually need to figure out? And that will make the biggest difference for you when it comes to the entire game and all of your confidence and belief in yourself. So I'll leave you with this. First of all, you want to identify if you're a type 1 player, type 2, or type 3. Are you kind of asking, are you blaming the mental game when in reality you need to improve your ability? Are you really struggling with your ability, or the other way around? Are you really struggling? You have the ability, but the mental is getting in the way? Or is it a combination of both? Odds are it's probably going to be a combination of both at some level, but which one do you identify most strongly with? Once you identify that, that's going to make the biggest difference for you. And then the next thing is really just to attack which specific area you need to attack. So once you get that clarity, which may come from a conversation, it may come from you just doing a real self-reflection and looking through your film, looking through your training, sitting down and just meditating on what you need to work on. Once you've done that, then you can set out a clear plan of, do I attack the mental game first? Do I attack my skills? Where do I attack the skills? Do I do them simultaneously? And at the end of the day, it's going to come down to having a holistic plan, but it's about where do I start? What do I prioritize? Prioritize what will help you the most first so you can get the most out of it. And then you can move on and progress forward, because you can't just attack everything at one time, or else you're going to find out very, very quickly that you don't get that good at anything. You end up just being kind of average at everything. But if you can attack pieces, you can build like Lego blocks, building up this like great wall of you. Eventually you kind of open your eyes and realize, whoa, like I can't believe how much better I got if you just settled kind of down into this understanding of set the plan, lay the plan out, go piece by piece. And then as you go through, learn. Don't get hooked on it has to be perfect the first time, but adapt, adjust, and you'll find your way. So hope this helps. I try to put this stuff out because I know that the younger version of myself would have appreciated understanding these principles, and it would have been much more impactful to learn them as soon as I could. So I'm going to try to get them out to you guys as soon as I can. If you need support, if you want to work together and you want to kind of go deeper with this stuff, if you want to just have a free conversation, feel free. There'll be like links somewhere around here. And I hope you have an awesome week. I'll talk to you guys soon.